million of Zimbabwe's rural population is in need of food aid. FEWSNET attributes this to the lack of food security due to the deteriorating macroeconomy and significantly below average 2018 to 2019 crop production. Our team was on the ground. Let's have a look.
Our rural population will be food insecure, a jump from 2.3 million. So what does this mean? This is just the raw picture, but we are saying the national situation is even worse, considering an equally bad urban situation. We are going to look at these scenarios. We look at the rural picture, but there is an equally worrisome picture if we consider the urban experiences, what is happening in the urban areas. So these are the numbers, and they are the official numbers. So the humanitarian assistance programming in Zimbabwe is guided by the outcomes of the Zim Bank. These are the results which are going to guide mainly the programming by government as well as our government partners. They normally respond with regards to the outcomes from the Zim Bank. So the figure that they are working on is 50% of the rural population, or about 5.5 million rural population. So this is production. The last production season, 2018-2019 season, we are saying is, according to the Minister of Agriculture, the second round crop and livestock statistics from the Minister of Agriculture. This past season has been the worst in a decade. In terms of one of the worst in a decade. Production is estimated at about 70,000 metric tons. 70,000 metric tons. That's our production for this year from the Ministry of Agriculture. That's the official figure from the ministry. I know some independent estimates, they put it a little bit higher. Some have got a little bit lower figures, but that's the official figure, 777,000 metric tons of production of maize. This is just maize. And that figure there is about 59% of the 5-year average.
The Deputy Minister of Energy and Power Development, Magna Mujigiwa, said that the private sector should be involved in the energy chain. This she said while attending the CZI Congress and International Investment Forum in Victoria Falls today. The Minister of Labour and Honourable Sekwa Nzenza, also speaking at the same event, say that the private sector should take the lead in the social and economic development. Let's have a look.
Invited to address the 2019 CZI Congress, which is running under the theme towards a market-led economy. Indeed, the theme resonates well with the thrust to ensure that the private sector takes the lead in economic and social development as enunciated in the Transitional Stabilization Plan and Vision 2030. I'm very glad to note that this gathering has brought together captains of industry and business experts from very diverse backgrounds, and this signifies the private sector's commitment to Zimbabwe's economic prosperity. Director of Ceremony, although my address will focus on the TNF and the role of social dialogue in driving industrial and economic development, I would also want to very briefly touch on other initiatives that my ministry is doing to improve the labor market environment in order to make it more conducive to sustainable industrial and economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, social dialogue refers to all kinds of consultations or the exchange of information between representatives of government, employers, and employees on issues of common interest relating to economic and social policy. It is also based on the notion of participatory governance. whereby government, social partners, civil society invited to address the 2019 CZI Congress, which is running under the theme towards a market-led economy. Indeed, the theme resonates well with the thrust to ensure that the private sector takes the lead in economic and social development as enunciated in the Transitional Stabilization Plan and Vision 2030. I'm very glad to note that this gathering has brought together captains of industry and business experts from very diverse backgrounds, and this signifies the private sector's commitment to Zimbabwe's economic prosperity. Director of Ceremony, although my address will focus on the TNF and the role of social dialogue in driving industrial and economic development, I would also want to very briefly touch on other initiatives that my ministry is doing to improve the labor market environment in order to make it.
The Minister of Tourism and Hospitality, Mupfumira, has been arrested today by the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission on allegations of corruption. The Commission issued a statement on Twitter confirming the news, stating that the Minister of Tourism was currently in their custody for questioning and due process. Afreximbank has selected Zimbabwe and Nigeria as the first Africa trade centers in Africa. The trade centers will be named Afreximbank Africa Trade Centers. The trade centers are set to offer one-stop trade services shops and will be located in the two countries' capital cities, Harare and Abuja. The move is set to make the two countries become trade hubs. It's a special initiative to bridge the trade and information gap in Africa and harness intra-African trade, as well as the bank intends to construct trade centers in a number of commercial cities in Africa. The bank has prioritized Harare and Abuja to construct the first trade centers. Kenya's economic growth is expected to grow by 6%. This growth has helped. This is according to Kenya's central bank governor, and Kenya is among the top 10 fastest growing countries in Africa, with a GDP of 6.1% predicted by IMF earlier this year. Thank you for watching. This concludes our evening news. Catch up with us later when we are discussing the current affairs.
Climbing to the top takes more than just hard work and smart choices. It's the passion that drives you from within, the endurance to keep going through difficult times, and having a very clear vision of how to succeed. That's what we strive for at CBZ. We're a diversified and innovative listed financial services group in Zimbabwe with a complete range of activities, including banking, short and long-term insurance, asset management, and property investments. CBZ has been a pinnacle for stability in the economic landscape of Zimbabwe, stemming from our deep-rooted values, our excellent customer service delivery, and our corporate vision to strive for excellence as a global competitor. Our continuous investment in research and development will cement our promise to provide customer convenience utilizing state-of-the-art technology. Relationships are at the core of what we do. We understand, however, that strong, long-lasting partnerships are not built overnight. With over 3 decades of wealth management, we have come to understand our clients and their specific investment requirements. Our unique mix of skills ensures that investment opportunities are examined from all perspectives. The balancing rocks of Zimbabwe have weathered the elements for thousands of years and stood the test of time, like majestic reminders of the fine balance of nature. They challenge our perception of what is possible and what endures, just as CBZ has weathered the economic storms and remained steadfast throughout the turbulence of unsettled economies. Achieving the impossible through resilience and stability, we balance the elements of hard work, dedication and experience, making us your ideal partner for success.
Welcome back to our news review. Here with me is Tinashe Kaduo, our economist. Hi Tinashe, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, Sandra. How are you today?
I'm alright, thank you for asking. Alright, so getting on to the questions. The CZI event that happened today in Victoria Falls, both ministers were saying that the private sector should come in and play their role in the economy. What do you think is the role of the private sector? Do you think they stand a chance, and do you think it's their place, it's their responsibility that these ministers should actually say that private sector has this responsibility to take the country forward? Is it their place?
Thank you, Sandra. If you look at what makes an economy function, it's actually the private sector. The private sector in all functioning economy should be the engine of growth and development. The government, its role is to have or to create a viable environment for investment. Then it leaves everything and every decision in terms of capital allocation, in terms of business decisions to the private sector. But we have seen of lately that whatever economic decision in this country is actually being played more by the government. Exactly. The government is actually today, as of today, the number one consumer as well as the number one investor and producer as well in this economy. So you are seeing that conflicting interest where the regulator is also the player in that economy. So even in the banking sector as well, we are also seeing the government enjoying much credit, much loans at the expense of the private sector. So the ministers actually pointing that, I think they are actually spot on. But they should lead by example. They should maybe try to implement that and maybe take a little step back and maybe enforce such policies and see the environment being favored towards the private sector capital rather than the government being the major investor there.
All right. Talking about the private sector being, actually, having a role to play in the economy. Currently, we are experiencing severe power outages, and no investor would come to Zimbabwe. And most of the private sector people are actually leaving. The companies, they're not willing to stay in such an environment. Do you think there's a chance that the private sector could actually take heed, considering that also they have no confidence in the government?
But if you look at the current power cuts, if you are an investor there, especially if you are a private sector player, it's actually an opportunity there. What's needed is for the government to create certain policies that would attract investment and capital in the energy sector. The main cause of these power challenges is because of poor investment or low investment in the energy sector. So if the private sector takes maybe its initiative to invest in that sector, given proper policies and proper structures and institutional framework in that sector, I think it will take the country forward. But over the past couple of years, we have seen the private sector actually taking a lead in terms of even power generation. We have seen successful projects that have been undertaken by the likes of Old Mutual, the Wonde Hydro Power project, which actually successfully completed your Pungwe A, Pungwe B down there in Wonde. Those are some of successful projects that should attract other projects in that perspective. But of lately we have seen also some other major projects in the power sector which have taken long to kickstart. We have the Rio Zim's project, I think, which is up to now it's still in initial stages since 2009. So I don't know, maybe some of the challenges are there to do with institutional framework as well as the off-take agreements with ZESA. So if the government maybe comes in and create that institutional framework as well as a good environment to protect that capital and ensure that the private sector enjoy its profits, I think we might see capital coming in that sector and see more and more players investing even in the power generation.
All right. As of now, currently, would you think of any policy that the government has implemented to actually attract more investors or to help the private sector?
We have seen of lately the Minister of Energy actually removing taxes for all those companies or individuals who are importing solar system. I think they are trying to ease power challenges, but I think there is not much that has been done to open up, especially the energy subsector, especially the power generation sector. So I think there should be more and more policies that should be implemented or be directed towards revamping that energy sector.
All right. Moving on to my next question. Minister of Tourism and Hospitality, Mupfumira, has been arrested or is in custody of the Zimbabwe AntiCorruption Commission. Do you think right now, Timber Minister on Twitter was saying hopefully this time around they make an arrest because they have enough evidence. But we've seen many arrests being done in Zimbabwe, but none of them have become actually fruitful because the next time, the next day we see the person actually walking free without any charges. Do you think right now they have enough to pin it down?
I wouldn't want to speculate much, especially on the tourism minister, especially on Honorable Mupfumira. But what I would say is, those authorities and those legal authorities, I think the law should take its course. If they have, if they have, proper evidence as to something that was done corruptly, I think the law yes to take its course. But we have seen, over the past couple of years, there are so many corrupt activities that were done, by high-level officials, which have, just gone, under the ground without even proper investigations. So I think maybe to take, our country forward, they should take, a certain, example. But I'm not pinning down on Honorable Mupfumira. I wouldn't want, to speculate that she did something that wasn't right or was wrong or something like that. But I would just say, let the law take its course.
Well said. Afreximbank has selected Zimbabwe and Nigeria as their first African trade centers. What's your take on that? What's your say? So many people are excited about, when the development was announced. Are you also excited? What do you think this is going to bring to Zimbabwe? They say it will bring, it will make Zimbabwe a trade hub. What do you think that's true?
If you look at Afreximbank over the past years, where we were reeling under sanctions, US sanctions, EU sanctions, as well as where we were maligned from even other African institutions. Actually, Afreximbank is actually become our all-weather bank. Whether we are doing well as an economy or whether we are going downwards, we have seen Afreximbank bailing us out with numerous lines of credit. Of lately, it gave us around 500 million to support the interbank market. So we are seeing that this is actually an investor who has a bit of confidence in the economy.
Yes.
We're seeing hope and future in the Zimbabwean economy. So for it to set a trade center in Zimbabwe, to me is something that is really positive, looking at what's happening in Africa. African countries, they are working towards having a continental free trade area. So for Zimbabwe to have a trade hub, which will be more of a learning center for other economies, I think is something that is really positive. And I think policymakers, especially the government, should try to move fast to implement or to make sure that the investment whatever Afreximbank has to invest in that project will be done in the shortest period of time.
Well, thank you for your time, Tinashe. This concludes our news review. May you catch us on our next segment, Markets Daily. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Markets Daily on Equity Access. My name is Anis Chimbung, and let's just get into the markets today. Now, the market has conceded again for the second session running, coming off by a mimicked percentage for both the all-share index and the industrial index. For both of those indexes to come down 0.14%, for the all-share index to settle at 190.97 points, while the industrials index has settled at 637.59 points. Now, for both these indices, year-to-date gains are still within the 30% region, with the all-share index up 30.62, while the industrials index is up 30.9%. Now, the top 10 index had about had about 8 counters that were very much active today. 3 of those were in the positive, but 5 were in the negative, therefore effectively pulling down that index by 0.18%. Major movements there coming in from BAT as it stretches its running loss from the prior session, for it to settle at 3,600 cents at the close of trading today. Now, it is the second worst performing counter on a year-to-date scale, with it only up 9.09%, while Nat Foods is only up 1.63%. Actually, it would be the third, because Sidco is down 27.81% on the year-to-date basis. Now, quickly moving on to our 5-day trend. 0.26% down on the all-share index, 0.19% down on the industrials index, 1.08, and 4.25% down on the minings index, which did sail stable today without any much movements from the two counters that do affect that index's movements. Now, FML did add about 0.8% to its share value today, selling at 25.2 cents, while Simbisa did let go of about 1.89% of its share value, down to 104 cents. BAT FBC trailed that, coming off 1.37%, 1.23%, and Economic Badenga did coming off 1.04% and 0.16%. Now, the nature of trades today did not have a very robust number of volumes on the market today. Volumes have been coming off, as is the motive, or rather the mood currently by investors in the most recent times since SI 142. Now, also the exchange control directive that was published yesterday by the RBZ Governor Dr. Mangujga has some people still a little bit confused as to how this directive is going to be really affecting them. Well, there are two sides of that coin. Individually, it may be a little bit more torrential. Business-wise, it may be a little bit more easing. Some are calling it a partial dollarization, but we are yet to really see the full effects, because they have shown their nature to be somewhat of a wait and see approach whenever they do publish, and then they try and waiver some of their stances based on how the public reacts. Now, as the public is still trying to assimilate this, we do have very minimal gains on some of our counters. Cassava adding 0.51%. Now, notably, Cassava today did launch a very interesting application. It is a very tech-driven counter. It is very innovative, has got a lot of technology-driven businesses, one of which would be an online shopping platform, also Via, which is an Uber-esque type of application. Now, they also did launch a new application today, which is pretty much almost similar to the Chinese popular WeChat. This application, they have coined it to be Sasai. I suppose with it being having a regard of it having the likelihood of mimicking what WhatsApp does. Also, WeChat having the option to actually be able to chat to some of your contacts. Now, within this application, there are features that you can also access the two applications that I did mention earlier on, which is Via and Online, the two online shopping platforms, one for transport and one for goods and services. And then also they did put in a link within that application where you can access your EcoCash. Now, more of this would be much explained by one of our media partners, iTrue Digital, in an article that they will surely publish by end of day tomorrow, for them to actually look at how things have been going. Now, quickly onto our markets as we have a look at how the market really reacted today to the exchange control directive that was given yesterday. Now, the interbank rate did strengthen slightly today, coming off actually adding on 0.13% to its value against the dollar, for it still at 8.9. Now, I'll suggest that this reaction also causing for a very, very slight movement within the parallel market, which still did actually depreciate. But such a directive with a lot of confusion and understanding of what's happening with that directive has caused for volumes to be very much depressed today, which has caused for those slight movements in the opposite direction for the interbank rate to 8.9, while the parallel market rate did pretty much hover right around about the same levels as yesterday, but did depreciate by a very minimal percentage for it to settle at 10.25 from 10.2 in the prior session. Now the old mutual implied rate has pretty much depreciated at a quicker rate today, coming to settle down at 10.87, very much consequent to an old mutual JSE stock coming off almost nearly 4% in the last 3 trading sessions, while our own ZEC stock having only added to its share value, causing for the larger disparity that has caused for this implied rate to actually widen. Now, for more of economic reviews and in-depth discussions that you may like to have a look at, we have an economic review and outlook paper that is published on a quarterly basis. We did publish Q1 back in April. Now we have Q2 that is ready and would be very much at your preview as you order on Aaron's email, which is aaronc@equityaccess.net, and I'll spell that out for you: aaronc@equityaccess.net. Now, if you just send him an email, he'll reply to you as soon as possible, and then you would also be able to get such a paper that is pretty much full of very good insights, one of which would be whether we should actually consider cutting back our interest rates and actually foregoing the disparity between inflation and the interest rate, and actually seeing that we may have to grow our economy in this moment in time where we are facing a stagflation. Now, from the Equity Access team and I, do not forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook accounts at Equity Access, and do visit our website www.equityaccess.net. Good evening.